By the time Elias Rook laid his ear against the hotel safe, Marshal Jonas Cutter had already decided what kind of man he was. The iron door stood open in the office of the Red Mercy Hotel. Heat pressed at the windows. Dust floated in the lamplight. Outside, boots creaked under the boardwalk awning where half the town had gathered to watch a widow lose whatever grief had not already taken. "Funny trade for an honest man," Cutter said, one hand resting on his revolver. "Opening what belongs to other people." Elias did not answer. He kept one palm against the safe, listening for the language of steel. A warped hinge had one sound, a worn spindle another. Men lied in 100 voices, but locks only ever told the truth. When he pulled the heavy door the rest of the way wide, the shelves inside were bare. Behind him, Norah Vale made one small sound, and the room fell still. She stood in black from throat to wrist. 3 months earlier, her husband Daniel had died in the room above them. Now the reserve cash was gone, the deed was gone, and the packet of tax receipts Daniel had sworn were current had vanished with them. Cutter took 2 steps forward and peered inside the safe with almost lazy satisfaction. "Well now," he said, "isn't that neat?" Norah's hands tightened at her middle. She did not cry. Most people reached for noise. She reached for stillness. "Was it locked when you found it?" Elias asked. "At dawn." "Yes," she said. Her voice was low, scraped thin by too many sleepless nights. "I checked it myself." "And who knew what was inside?" Cutter smiled without warmth. "That sounds mighty close to stalling." Elias crouched beside the safe instead of in front of it. A sliver of beeswax lay in the dust where the iron met the floor. He touched it with his fingertip. Not forced, not blasted, not pried. Opened clean. He stood. "Whoever emptied it used skill." "Then that narrows it considerably," Cutter said. "Seeing as you're the only locksmith in 2 counties can open a safe without leaving a mark." Murmurs drifted in from the porch. Elias had lived in Red Mercy 11 months. Long enough for the town to trust his hands and keep a careful distance from the rest of him. A drifter with scarred knuckles and a trade too close to wrongdoing was always one bad afternoon away from being named exactly what people had feared from the start. Before we go any further, settle in wherever you are tonight and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. A porch in Georgia, a kitchen in Alberta, a quiet room in Perth, somewhere in Yorkshire with the rain on the glass. We always like knowing who's here with us when a story begins. Cutter turned to the crowd at the office door. "Nobody leaves town till this is sorted." "Search my shop," Elias said. The marshal looked back at him. "Generous. Search my room too. Search anything I own. But do it before that crowd decides the ending for you." Norah stepped forward then. Not much. Just 1 pace. Yet the room felt it. "Marshal," she said, "if Elias meant to rob me, he had easier chances than this. Daniel trusted him. So do I." Cutter gave her the kind of look men use when they believe gentleness is a form of superiority. "Widow Vale, grief makes people poor judges." At that moment Deputy Owen Webb hurried in, hat in hand, sweating through his collar. "Message from the county seat," he said. Assessor Bellum filed notice. "Taxes in arrears on the Vale property. If payment isn't produced by Friday noon, the hotel passes under lien." Friday was 3 days away. Norah's face did not change, but something in the room did. Elias felt it like a click inside a lock. The missing cash. The vanished deed. The sudden tax notice. Not confusion. Design. He looked again at the wax. Then at Cutter, neat as a store mannequin in his clean vest and polished boots. He did not know yet how the theft had been done, but he knew when a trap had been baited. By nightfall, the search of Elias Rook had turned up nothing but order. In his shop, they found key blanks in precise rows, a Bible with a broken spine, 3 shirts, rent paid ahead, and tools laid out with the discipline of a man who trusted metal more than memory. No stolen money, no deed, no packet of tax receipts. When the others left, Deputy Webb lingered by the counter, rolling his hat brim between nervous fingers. "I told the marshal I didn't find anything," he said. Elias kept filing a hinge pin. "You say that like it cost you." The boy flushed. He could not have been more than 23. His mustache still looked borrowed. "Bellum's been after the Vale place a while," he said. "Says when the railroad finally comes west, that corner will be worth a fortune. He loans money to folks already drowning. Cutter leans on anyone who tries to climb back out. People know it. They just know it quiet." Elias set the file down. "And you work under him, why?" Webb swallowed. My mother needs the pay. After the deputy left, Elias locked the front door and studied the curl of beeswax under his lamp. Good wax. Used for taking impressions. Not of a safe dial. Of a key. He closed his eyes and rebuilt the hotel office in his head. Safe, desk, ledger drawer, key cabinet on the rear wall. Daniel Vale had been a careful man. Careful men hid important things in systems. Duplicate keys. Notes. Combinations. If someone copied one small household key, they might reach whatever held the next secret. 3 soft knocks sounded at the door. Elias slipped his revolver from beneath the bench and opened the door an inch. Norah Vale stood outside with a lantern in one hand and a shawl over her head. Night had gentled nothing in her face. She looked tired clear to the bone, but not fragile. "May I come in?" she asked. She sat on the stool by his workbench while he barred the door again. Up close, he saw that her palms were marked with half-moons where her own nails had cut her skin. "Daniel changed hiding places for papers every spring," she said. "After he took ill, he wrote them down and sealed the list in an envelope. He told me to open it only if he died." She drew a careful breath. "When I looked for it this morning, the clock case in our parlor was already open. The list was gone." She set a small brass key on the bench. "This opens the clock case," she said. "Can you tell whether it's been copied?" Elias held it to the light. Fresh scratches near the shoulder. Pressure marks along the edge. "Yes," he said. Norah shut her eyes once. Only once. "Then whoever robbed the safe had access to my house. Or to someone who did." She studied him. "Why are you calmer than I am?" "I'm not calmer. I'm just busier with it." For the first time that day, something like a smile almost touched her mouth. "I came to you," she said, "because the marshal spent more time watching your face than looking for my deed." Cutter wanted a culprit, not a truth. Bellum wanted the hotel. Friday noon was the blade already raised over her life. Norah looked at him across the scarred workbench. "If they plan this, can we stop it?" Elias could have left before dawn. Nobody had chained him to Red Mercy. A man with his hands could find work anywhere. He could ride south, start over again, let another town misjudge him by inches instead of miles. When he was 16, his father had been hanged in Kansas for a bank vault robbery he had not committed. Samuel Rook had built locks and repaired safes. Elias had learned young that innocence did not always survive a man with a badge and a story. Run or stay. Safety or loyalty. His eyes went to Norah's cut palms, then back to the key between his fingers. "I'll help you," he said. She looked almost pained by the relief that crossed her face. "Why?" "Because a thing doesn't stop being yours because a thief is clever." He stood and reached for his coat. "Show me the house. Show me the clock. Then tell me everyone who was near Daniel while he was dying." Norah rose too. "The town will talk if I'm seen with you at night." They were going to talk anyway. The Vale house sat behind the hotel beneath 2 cottonwoods. Inside, the parlor smelled faintly of lavender and old medicine. The clock case stood open exactly as Norah had said. Elias knelt and examined the lock. Opened by key. No damage. On the shelf below lay a pale smear of grit that did not belong to house dust. He rubbed it between finger and thumb. "Limestone. Your cellar lined with stone?" he asked. "No." "Hotel office?" "No," she frowned. "The courthouse annex is limestone. Bellum had the records room rebuilt last year." Elias rose slowly. If Bellum stole the deed, he would bury it among lawful papers, somewhere ordinary eyes had no right to search. "I need to see the records room tonight," Elias said. Norah stared. "You mean to break into the courthouse?" "I mean to test whether public records are as private as Bellum hopes." "That is burglary," said politely. She folded her arms. "I'm coming." "No. Mr. Rook, if my life is being stolen by paper, I should like to witness the hand that reaches for it." The exhaustion in her was real. So was the steel. Elias nodded once. "Bring a dark shawl." The annex crouched behind the courthouse like a man trying not to be noticed. Elias knelt in the alley shadow, slipped 2 picks into the Yale lock, and listened. The mechanism yielded in less than a minute. Inside, moonlight striped shelves of ledgers and deed packets. Elias shielded a stub candle with his palm and moved quickly. Tax files. Transfer forms. Pending liens. There. A packet labeled Vale Hotel Parcel. 2 ready. 2 prepared. He opened it. Inside lay the tax notice, a transfer document dated for Friday, and beneath them Daniel Vale's missing deed, folded twice, the red ribbon removed. Norah's breath caught beside him. Then voices sounded in the outer office. Bellum first, nasal and impatient. Cutter after him, smooth and certain. "You're sure the widow has nothing?" Bellum asked. "If she had the deed, she'd have produced it," Cutter said. "What concerns me is Rook. Guilty men usually run faster than this." Bellum struck a match. "Then jail him tomorrow. Once the hotel transfers, she'll either board with kin or marry the first clerk willing to take pity on her." "And if she contests?" Bellum chuckled. "With what paper?" In the records room, Norah went so still Elias could feel the force of it beside him. He slipped the deed inside his vest. The outer door closed. Hoofbeats faded. Only then did Norah whisper, "We have it. We can leave tonight. Find a judge somewhere else." But if they fled, Bellum would say the deed had been stolen by the locksmith all along. Cutter would swear it. Red Mercy would believe what cost it least. "If we go," Elias said, "they keep doing this. To you. To the next widow. To every man who signs a paper he can't fight. Then what do? We make them open their own lie in public." They slipped back into the alley and found Deputy Webb waiting there with his revolver half raised. "Don't move," he said, voice shaking. Norah stiffened. Elias kept his hands visible. "Marshal says if I see you out after curfew, I bring you in." "Red Mercy doesn't have a curfew," Norah said. "It does tonight, I guess." "You can still choose," Elias said quietly. Webb swallowed hard. "My mother cleaned Bellum's office all winter. She found private ledgers. Loans, bribes, false penalties. She copied pages in case anything ever happened. They're hidden in our flour bin." His gun wavered. "If I bring them, will you use them?" "Yes." "Then meet me at the church before dawn. If I don't make it." A rifle cracked from the rooftop across the alley. Webb jerked backward and hit the dirt. Norah cried out. Elias fired toward the muzzle flash. Glass shattered above them. "Run," he said. They ran. A second shot splintered the fence beside Norah. Elias caught her elbow and dragged her through the stable yard while horses screamed and kicked against their stalls. Lanterns flared along Main Street. Men shouted from porches. Somewhere behind them boots pounded in pursuit. At the back of the smithy, Elias shoved Norah behind a water trough and crouched beside her. "Stay here," he said. "Count 20, then go to the church by the lane." Her hand closed on his wrist. "Don't die proving decent men still exist. I've been accused of worse by better liars," he said. "I'll manage." He moved into the dark. The storm came fast after that. He crossed behind the cooper's shed, ducked a shot, slammed an elbow into one pursuer's throat, fired at another's shoulder, and cut right toward his shop while drawing them away from the church lane. Cutter's voice rose from somewhere near the street, calling orders sharp enough to sound official even while murder was being done. Elias reached his shop window, smashed the pane with his pistol butt, and hauled himself inside just as the front door burst open. "Rook!" Cutter shouted. "Throw down the gun." Elias dropped behind the workbench. He heard 2 men enter, maybe 3. Cutter in front. One left. One hanging back. "You shot your own deputy," Elias called. "You turned him. Same difference." A boot scraped closer. Elias grabbed the tin of grease blacking beneath the bench, flung it toward the wall lamp, and fired. The lamp burst. Flame climbed the curtain. Cutter cursed and fell back. Elias came over the workbench with the heavy key press and dropped the nearest man. Then he drove for the door. Cutter caught his coat. For one hard second they were face to face. The marshal's polished manners burned away to raw hatred. "You're nothing," Cutter hissed. "A jailbird's son with dirty hands." Elias jammed the revolver under Cutter's jaw. He did not fire. He wanted the man alive. Wanted witnesses. Wanted daylight. So he drove his forehead into Cutter's nose, felt cartilage give, and tore free into the street as the shop window blew outward behind him in a rush of sparks. Then the church bell began to ring. Not by rope. By Deputy Webb, half collapsed against the pole post, blood down his sleeve, hauling with what strength he had left. The bell rolled over Red Mercy like judgment. Doors opened. Lamps flared. People poured from houses and rooms above stores. Webb slumped again, but kept hold of the rope until the town was fully awake. Norah emerged from the side lane at that same moment, shawl torn, cheeks pale, a flour-dusted cloth bundle clutched in both hands. If you've ever rooted for someone simply because they kept choosing what was right while the whole world punished them for it, then you know exactly what this moment feels like. If that's the kind of story you want more of, a like and a subscribe tells us to keep writing them. People crowded the churchyard. Reverend Pike, the blacksmith, Mrs. Harlan from the Notions store still in her wrapper, ranchers, cooks, boarders from the hotel. Cutter arrived with blood on his collar. Bellum came puffing behind him, spectacles crooked. "That man stole county records and shot my deputy," Cutter said, pointing at Elias. Webb, barely conscious against the bell post, made a sound that might have been a laugh. Norah stepped forward before Elias could speak. "My husband paid this hotel free and clear," she said, voice carrying across the yard without strain. "Tonight, I found his deed hidden in the county records room before the transfer date on Mr. Bellum's own tax papers. I heard these men speak of taking my property by force dressed as law. Deputy Webb bled, trying to get us proof. Here it is." She handed the flowery bundle to Reverend Pike, because she knew exactly whom the town trusted when law went rotten. Pike unfolded the copied ledger pages under a lantern and read aloud. "False penalties, bribes, hidden loans, seized parcels." Names spilled into the dark one after another. Boone Ranch, Harlan Mercantile, the Torres brothers, Widow Greeley. Men and women who had spent months thinking their misfortune was private when in truth it had been organized. Bellum lunged for the papers. Elias caught him by the coat and shoved him to his knees. Cutter drew his gun. So did 6 other people. Not on Elias. On Cutter. The blacksmith stepped off the curb first. Old Boone followed. Then Mrs. Harlan with a shotgun steady across her forearms. Others joined them until the marshal stood in a rough ring of citizens who had finally found the one thing stronger than fear: shared proof. "Put it down," Elias said. Cutter's eyes darted around the circle. For the first time all night, he looked like a man borrowing power instead of owning it. Bellum, still in the dust, whispered, "Jonas, don't." The marshal lowered the gun. Dr. Ames carried Webb inside the church and said the boy might live. Bellum and Cutter were locked under guard in separate storerooms at the Mercantile. Toward dawn, after the churchyard emptied and the worst of the adrenaline had burned away, Norah sat on the steps wrapped in a blanket. Elias brought her coffee in a tin cup that tasted mostly of scorched beans. They sat in the weak gray before sunrise listening to swallows stir under the eaves. "When Daniel was dying," Norah said, "I told him I was afraid of becoming invisible. Not poor, not alone. Invisible. The sort of woman people talk around instead of to. He said grief makes some folks disappear and some folks impossible to ignore." Elias looked at the churchyard dust on his boots. "Seems he knew you." She turned the cup in her hands. "Who taught you your trade?" "My father." "The father Cutter named tonight." He gave a small nod. For a moment he thought of saying nothing. Then he was tired of silence costing so much. "He made locks and repaired vaults," Elias said. "A bank emptied itself. The town decided only a locksmith could have done it. They needed somebody they'd never understood. He's suited." Norah listened without interruption, which was rarer than pity and far kinder. "Did he steal it?" she asked quietly. "Not a coin." After a while Norah said, almost to herself, "The people who've been doubted hardest always know exactly what trust is worth." He turned then and truly saw her. "Norah," he said. "Yes. If the county seat sends honest law by noon, you'll have a hotel to run. And if it doesn't, then I suppose I'll keep fixing this town's doors until it learns manners." That earned the softest laugh from her. She set down her cup. "Stay, Elias. Not because I need saving. I'm done being spoken of like a thing to be rescued. Stay because a man ought to have one place where he isn't measured by the worst lie told about him." That invitation undid him more cleanly than any bullet. He reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair back beneath her shawl. She leaned just slightly into his hand. Warmth. Not safety yet, but warmth. By noon Judge Harcourt rode in from the county seat with deputies who answered to him instead of Cutter. Red Mercy gave testimony the way dry country takes rain, hard, fast, all at once. Reverend Pike read the copied ledgers. Norah produced the deed. Webb, bandaged and pale but alive, stated from a chair that Cutter had invented a curfew after dark and that Bellum's foreman had fired from the rooftop. The foreman was found before supper in a dry wash with powder burns on his cuff and Bellum's scrip in his pocket. Bellum was arrested for fraud, theft by falsified transfer, conspiracy, attempted murder, and bribery. His private accounts were seized. Properties taken under false penalties were reviewed and, where law allowed, restored. Cutter lost his badge before sunset and his freedom by dawn. He cursed the town the whole way out, but nobody listened. That was the first real punishment men like him ever suffered: irrelevance. The judge cleared Elias publicly and ordered compensation paid for the burning of his shop from Bellum's confiscated assets. When Harcourt asked if he wished to press a personal claim for slander, Elias looked at Norah standing near the hotel porch. "No," he said. "I'd rather build something useful." So he did. The town that had suspected him arrived over the next week carrying lumber, glass, nails, and hinges. They worked awkwardly, hoping labor might stand in for apology. Elias led it. He rebuilt the locksmith shop larger than before, with a proper brick chimney and a second workbench by the front window. Norah insisted he choose the hotel's new office safe himself. He selected one with a relocking device and taught her how to feel, with fingertips against steel, when a dial had been disturbed by the wrong hands. By autumn, Red Mercy had retold the whole business into local scripture. Elias Rook could open any safe in the territory, and he had never once stolen a single coin, even when theft might have saved him trouble. Travelers carried it onward. More important, the town said it where Elias could hear. A name dragged through dust needs witness. The first snow came late that year. It powdered the hotel porch and laid white along the hitching rail. Elias was repairing a room lock in the lobby when Norah crossed from the desk and set a small parcel beside his tools. Inside was a plain silver watch, modest but carefully chosen. On the back she had engraved 6 words. "Some doors are meant to open home." He looked up. Her cheeks had colored a little. "Seemed a better use for silver than a chain on the wrong man's vest," she said. "Norah," he said. "Yes. I've spent most of my life leaving before a place could ask me to stay," he said. "If I remain this time, it won't be out of gratitude. It'll be because every road I picture from here ends with me looking back for you." She crossed the space between them slowly. "Then remain," she said, lifting a hand to his face. "Not because I was broken, not because you were, because neither of us was meant to end alone." When he kissed her, it was gentle and certain. In spring, Webb returned to duty under a new marshal elected by the town council instead of appointed by county favor. Mrs. Harlan took to sitting on the hotel porch as if personally guarding the moral order of Red Mercy. Bellum's seized holdings were auctioned fairly, with the money first paid back to those he had cornered. Cutter was sentenced in Santa Fe and left in chains, still insisting he had been betrayed. The town had finally chosen decency over fear. Months later, the restored dining room hosted a dance. Lamps glowed warm over polished floors. Norah moved among the tables in blue instead of morning black, and every few minutes Elias found himself stopping just to watch her laugh with people who no longer looked through her at all. Near midnight, she slipped onto the porch for air. He followed with 2 cups of coffee, because some habits deserve keeping. "You know," she said, leaning against the railing, "you are still the only man in town I'd trust near my safe. That'll offend half the county blacksmiths. Let them heal." He handed her a cup. Their shoulders touched. From far beyond the ridge came the faint whistle of a train, soft as a future finally arriving. Elias looked at the lit windows, the dancing townsfolk inside, the woman beside him, and understood that a life did not change the instant a lock opened. It changed when someone placed the key in your hand and believed you would use it kindly. Years later, travelers stopping at the Red Mercy Hotel still heard how the widow kept the books sharper than any banker and how the locksmith downstairs could open any safe in the territory but never once took what wasn't his. But the truest part was smaller than legend. On winter evenings, when the lamps were low and the dishes were drying, Norah left the office door unlocked until Elias came in from the shop, because trust, once earned honest, ought to be left where love can reach it, and the last light of the hotel rested warm in their front window while snow settled soft along the porch rail. Next time, we'll tell the story of a deaf seamstress sent west because her brothers thought her a burden, and the burned cattleman who was the first man alive to understand that silence can hear a lie before words ever speak it.